This morning, an Albuquerque woman is facing serious charges after police say they busted her trying to sell the stolen stuff back to the victim. Police say 32-year-old Crystal Romero asked the victim for $400 in exchange for his stolen Apple laptop, two iPads, Apple TV unit, and some other items. All of the goods were stolen during a break-in of the victim's home about a week and a half ago. The victim agreed to meet Romero at a Southwest Albuquerque McDonald's. Undercover officers were there as well. When they arrested Romero, she claimed she was actually trying to return the stuff, then apologized. It was a tale too tall for police.
She got busted, plain and simple. So apology not accepted, but we will accept you and take you down to jail.
Romero told police she bought the stolen items off of someone else. It's unclear yet if she is connected to that home burglary. Shot while driving. That's what a victim says happened to him Sunday morning. This morning, Albuquerque police are looking for the shooter. Detectives say a man came into UNM Hospital with a gunshot wound around 1:30 in the morning. He told them he was driving on Girard near Gibson when a car coming the other direction shot at him, hitting his car twice. Good news is he's expected to survive. Police don't know if the shooter and the victim knew each other and have not caught the shooter just yet. We did some checking this morning and found the two men responsible for shutting down a portion of San Mateo and Pan American Freeway are still locked up today. Investigators say after an officer pulled over Marcus Dottie, he tried to run, but he was found hiding under a tractor trailer. Police say the pastor, Rashad Ortiz, had a lot of cocaine and even a gun on him. APD used a variety of tactics to bring Dottie into custody, including their helicopter. Both Dottie and Ortiz were arrested. This morning, the FBI is looking for this woman right here who tried to rob an Albuquerque bank. It happened at the Wells Fargo inside the Smiths at Carlisle and Constitution this weekend. The feds say she gave a teller a note, then demanded money. They say she left without getting any, though. The suspect is described as a black woman in her early 20s, about 5'6", with a thin build. If you know who she is, you're asked to call police. The city wants to step up efforts to keep people, including kids, safe in and around arroyos. That's why the city of Albuquerque is working on developing a new system to better warn officials and the public of flooding dangers. The Arroyo Flash Flood Indication System will be set up along the arroyo, which runs near I-40. The city wants to install warning stations in several areas there. They would monitor water levels, sending an alert to AFD and the Emergency Management Office when they get too high. The stations would make sure people know danger is imminent using lights and sirens.
We want to reduce the number of swift water rescues that occur, and also just to, build on our education to the public that ditches are deadly, but this would also just give an indication.
So it's not a done deal just yet. The city hopes to pay for the $300,000 project with the bond, which will be on November's ballot. But they say if the bond is voted down, they will look into other ways to fund the project. We turn now to news happening today. Residents in Taos may be a little concerned to see smoke in the air, but not to worry. Forest officials are conducting a prescribed burn. It's taking place about 3 miles northeast of Penasco and about a half-mile west of New Mexico Highway 518. Officials say the burn is to help keep the potential for high-intensity fires at very low. There is no need to contact authorities if you do see smoke in that area. Again, it is a prescribed burn. This morning, Pope Francis is back home at the Vatican after a 10-day trip to Cuba and the U.S. Pope Francis wrapped up his trip in Philadelphia on Sunday, celebrating an open-air mass that drew about 1 million people. Earlier in the day, the Pope met with victims of sex abuse and apologized for the church's failure to protect them. And if you'll remember, the group from New Mexico who went to see the Pope, they're heading back home. 300 New Mexicans from St. Therese Parish. They took the nearly 2,000 miles trip. The group could be back sometime later this morning. Some great stories to tell as well. A Florida woman is waking up in jail after being accused of riding on the back of a sea turtle. Take a look at your TV screens right here. Stephanie Marie Moore had been wanted since July and a felony warrant for offenses related to marine turtles. The charges came after Snapchat photos appearing to show her on the animal's back went viral. Moore was being held on a $2,000 bond. Take a look at this. A man pumping gas in Michigan tried to kill a spider with a cigarette lighter. He ended up setting the entire pump on fire. Surveillance video from the mobile gas station shows flames quickly engulfing the man's car and even the gas pump. A woman says she watched the entire thing go down Tuesday morning while she was working.
He didn't have a cigarette. He didn't have anything on him. So all of a sudden I looked out and I seen flames.
Yeah, the driver put out the flames himself with the fire extinguisher. He told authorities he spotted that spider on his gas tank and decided, you know what, let's pull out the lighter to get rid of it. He claimed to be deathly afraid of spiders. Luckily, no one was hurt in all of this. We start with news happening today. The House committee looking into impeaching Secretary of State Diana Duran is expected to meet for the first time this morning. 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, they will investigate the allegations against Duran. The Attorney General's office filed dozens of charges against the second-term Republican, accusing her of turning campaign donations into campaign spending cash. Legislators authorized up to $250,000 for a bipartisan panel to investigate Duran. The meeting gets underway around 9:30 this morning. That's about 3 hours. That's at the Roundhouse. No one person has been impeached in New Mexico history. We'll stay on top of the latest and bring it to you right here on KRQE News 13. We turn out to this new this morning. Newly released police reports and audio interviews are revealing more about a deadly flood during a scouting trip. 13-year-old Alden Brock was killed when flooding hit the Philmont Scout Ranch back in June. He and 8 other boys were sleeping in their tents at the ranch during a 12-day trek when the floodwaters came. Now, interviews obtained by the Santa Fe New Mexican give insight into what survivors went through that day. Some claim they woke up to a rush of water and struggled to open the zippers on their tents. Some even used their teeth to cut holes into their tents just to get out. We turn now to this morning. A man accused of stabbing his neighbor to death over a dog is still on the run this morning. More than 2 years after the incident, that is. The victim's family says they're still doing everything they can to find him.
It's devastating. It really is, to know that this man is having another birthday, is having another Christmas, is having another meal, is sleeping in a warm bed. Well, my son is very cold in a grave.
Investigators say Michael Sanchez was stabbed 28 times by Ricardo Villanueva Cordova at this gas station back in June 2013. They believe the attack was over a long-held dispute between neighbors about a barking dog. Sanchez's family is now pushing harder than ever to help find his alleged killer. Elizabeth Sanchez Lucero posts wanted flyers to Facebook and Twitter every single day. She's even hired a sketch artist to create dozens of photos of what Villanueva Cordova may look like right now. She's also working to increase the reward for his capture. Villanueva Cordova was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping last summer. Police say he then fled to Mexico. Federal authorities are now on this case. We turn out to this. President Obama is expected to speak at the United Nations today. Yesterday, he spoke to world leaders about poverty. Now he's set to speak about a range of global issues. News 13's Catherine Mazzone is in the Newsplex with the details. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. President Obama told world leaders we can break the cycle of poverty on Sunday, urging them to join the U.S. in combating poverty and world hunger.
It is a lack of development when people have no education and no jobs and no hope that helps fuel so much of the tensions and conflict and instability in our world.
Today, the president will address other international issues like the crisis in Syria. Russia recently angered the U.S. by sending troops, supplies, and weapons there. Some intelligence analysts think the weapons could be used to attack rebel forces supported by the U.S. Russian President Vladimir Putin is currently in New York and is expected to meet with President Obama. He recently met with reporters and spoke about his strategy.
There's no other solution to the Syrian crisis than strengthening the effective government structures and rendering them help in fighting terrorism.
Putin is expected to lay out new proposals to resolve the conflict in Syria when he addresses the UN today. Back to you, Crystal.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Now, on Tuesday, President Obama will meet face-to-face with Cuban President Raul Castro on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. We turn now to news happening today as we take a live look over Washington, D.C. this morning. We're expecting a big announcement from NASA. NASA is calling the announcement, quote, Mars Mystery Solved. For years, NASA has been exploring and studying the red planet to determine if it can be lived on. Rumors swirling on the internet are speculating that the announcement could be about water flowing on the planet's surface. Again, the announcement is expected to happen this morning. We'll let you know when it does. We turn on to some breaking overnight news. A fifth person has died after last week's horrible collision between a bus and tourist duck boat in Seattle. Authorities say the woman was 20 years old and an international student at North Seattle College. All 5 people who've died were students at that school. Dozens of others were injured in the crash. The National Transportation Safety Board says that the duck boat's axles may have been the problem in this. The issue was actually discovered back in 2013, but had not been fixed. Happening today, the FAA will begin investigating a plane crash near Belen over the weekend. The plane was carrying 3 Boy Scouts Saturday when it crashed near the Belen airport. The Scouts were trying to earn an aviation merit badge by taking a flight with a pilot they knew from church. But as the plane approached the airport, there was some major problems.
When he said, like, we're losing power, I couldn't understand him very well. I was like, wait, what? And then he was like, that's not good, we're losing power.
That is something you don't want to hear from your pilot, right? The plane landed on a dirt road and spun after hitting a bush. Luckily, no one was hurt in all of this. We turn to this developing story now. State police are busy investigating an officer-involved shooting in Lovington. Authorities say officers responded to a shots fired call at home. They say during the investigation, a man was shot, later died at the hospital. Police have not released any further details on this. Managers at an Albuquerque business say a trio of thieves is hurting its employees' pockets. The suspected thieves are accused of stealing a tip jar from Squeezed Juice Bar that's in Nob Hill. Owner Ryan Fellows says 2 men and a young woman came in Friday night. He says while one of the men distracted the cashier, the woman snatched the tip jar from the counter right there.
They were in and out in less than 10 seconds, grabbed the whole tip jar, all of our employees' tips.
Fellows says while the thieves only got away with about 30 to 40 bucks, they also stole from a neighboring business. Managers at the Chocolate Dude next door say they also saw the thieves at night. They came in, swiped money from their tip jar, and then took off. Developing this morning, the Secretary of Education says teachers, students, and even parents, they should expect lower scores when results for the controversial PARCC test are finally released on Saturday. According to Secretary Hannah Scandera, other states that have implemented the test have seen drops in scores of up to 40% the first year. The PARCC test is based on Common Core standards, a new type of learning that many parents just don't like. They argue it's too complicated and dumbs down some students. The state has not wavered in its implementation of the test, despite many protests and refusals by students to take it. Take a look at this newly released lapel video. It shows quick-thinking officers rescue a man trapped in a canal. Here it is.
Can you hold yourself up on that door for just a second?
You can see in the lapel video, officers spot the car crashed into a canal in Utah. They hop into the water, see the driver stuck inside the car, and he has 2 broken legs. They're eventually able to get him on a gurney there and lift him out of that canal. Now, doctors say the man, again, does have the broken legs, but he's expected to be okay otherwise. Authorities are still investigating just how he crashed into the canal in the first place. Pretty terrifying.